Hello everybody, and thanks for tuning in today. For today's presentation, what we're going to be covering is the sales stage activities feature inside of Apptivo. So we'll explain a little bit about kind of what is the feature, how is it used inside of your CRM, and then we'll dive into some examples when you use that workflow versus some similar features that might replace functionality that sales stage activities could be for. And then we'll actually dive in and we'll hop into the application and we'll configure some examples together. So everything you need to get a quick little start and learn how to use sales stage activities. So as far as an agenda, these are kind of the 4 topics that we're going to hit on today. So let's just go ahead and hit on the first item, which is what are sales stage activities? So it's the ability for you to go into your CRM inside of our sales workflow, define stages, but specifically on each stage, indicate a standard set of activities that should happen on a predetermined timeline. So this can be things like putting in a reminder for your sales rep to follow up once a quote has gone out. I can have the system automatically trigger an email off to the customer on our behalf, or we could even do a fusion of both and send an automated email internally or to the customer, and then also go and put an activity into the agenda of our sales rep. So what this looks like to the end user is going to be something like this, where I'm inside of my CRM, we're looking at an opportunity right here. I'm looking at Arroyo Spring Yearbook Photos. We can see it's for the customer Arroyo Elementary, and it's currently in the stage first meeting. But then up top, this is the sales stage activities feature. So it's a visualization of the different stages in my pipeline. So we can see first meeting, nurturing, identified decision makers. This is the pipeline that I've configured for this one company. And then you'll see that there's a standard set of activities. So following up again. And then some of these you can see are emails, some are follow-ups, some could be events or tasks that I need to complete. The idea is that this feature is based on top of all the standard activity management inside of Apptivo. So it's an optional feature that you can choose to turn on inside of your company, and it would be based on top of this. So you'll notice that if there's a task for write-up sales proposal, it'll also be present inside of the task tab. What this means is any activity that is used or generated by these features, it also appears in that main agenda right when you log in, just like any normal activity that you had manually generated. So that's just at a high level what the feature is, but now let's kind of talk about when is this going to get put into use, because there's actually a lot of similar features that you can use to accomplish this type of workflow inside of Apptivo. So when we're talking about workflow and how you're going to go about building out your sales pipeline, really you can break it down into these 7 primary categories, and you'll notice number 6 is the sales stage activities that we're talking about today. But yeah, there's a lot of things as far as putting standard workflow of, all right, well, I need to complete something. Let's say one of my activities could be I need to get a decision maker, or I need to acquire a budget from the customer. There's things like this that, really that's just I have a field that must be filled in at a certain stage. So that's kind of the beginning of your workflow. You don't need to use sales stage activities for that. Then the sales stages themselves, that's the basis of this feature. But of course, if you just need to track a couple statuses within your deals, you just put those in as stages. And then additionally, I want to point out that you might be using the sales cycles, which is the ability for you to manage multiple different pipelines. So in this, what you want to keep in mind is these sales stage activities that we're going to generate, we create a series of activities underneath each sales stage. Now your sales cycles, you could have 2 different sales cycles that use the same sales stages, or there could be a stage that's unique to each. So you want to make sure that you consider this when creating activities on a sales stage, that they are appropriate for every pipeline that stage is a part of. Then otherwise within the field configuration, you got, different conditions that you can apply. We can apply different security, but then it comes down to sales stage activities. So these last 2 are kind of the workflow type elements, where when you want to create a standard set of activities that your team needs to perform, or a standard set of, restrictions or guidelines of when you need to be following up. These can be accomplished using the last 2. Sales stage activities is a newer feature. It's kind of a little bit easier to use. The idea is that a lot of what you can do with triggers can also be done with sales stage activities, but then there's a few things that you can do with triggers as far as like the generic workflow builder that aren't possible through sales stage activities. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on just number 6, but let's just quickly kind of cover what types of workflow are available, which, we kind of covered in the previous one, but just to put it into perspective, you've got kind of a standard set of features, and then there's ones that are, more just custom based on what you generate. So the sales stage activities is what we consider a standard workflow feature. They're generally easier to implement. You've got a little bit more of kind of a stencil to work within, versus whenever you can't use one of our standard features, which you should always try to use a standard feature first, then you can go and resort to either using those custom field conditions inside of the master layout or going and building out triggers. So in the example where let's say you wanted to automatically send an email when a certain event occurs, when you reach a certain stage, it's recommended to send that email using sales stage activities if you are able to. Otherwise, you can use the triggers feature to send that email. So that's just kind of one little guideline as far as how you want to, or choosing which feature that you want to use to configure these workflows. So with that, we don't want to spend too much time on this overview. Let's get into the application and let's show you how to build out some sales stage activities. So we'll hop back in. This feature is specifically within the Opportunities app. And then real quick, we'll just go look at that one deal that we were looking at a moment ago. So we'll see the end result. And then we'll go look at, well, what configuration components go into this. So as we see, we have our standard set of sales stages. So that's the very first piece that we're going to need to configure is set up the appropriate stages. And then there's a series of activities underneath each one. So what we do is we're going to hop into the configuration, click on more, then go to settings. And we'll expand the opportunities option over here, and we're going to click on sales stages. So everything that you want to configure is all performed from within right here. The very first page is where you create the main sales stages. So, you can rearrange from right there. We can disable anything by clicking on the actions right here and turning it on or off. And these actions are also where we see the activities themselves. So as we noticed, I've already got some activities configured for each stage. The idea is that I come in here and I can assign 1, 0, or many activities to a single stage. And these will be standardized for every deal that enters this stage. So if you have variations of, in a deal that takes longer, I want to wait longer between my follow-ups. If you can think of differences between the activities that you might want to perform in each stage, it's recommended to go and leverage the sales cycle feature. So right here, I just have a single pipeline. There's just a standard set of stages that I go through. The idea is I could come through and, create like a long-term pipeline, something like that. And then based on this, I've got mine set to automatically go and assign which pipeline should come in. So I'd come in and set some criteria here. I'm just going to put in some various details. And then you'll see I can add which stages are included. So let's say even if you have a stage called nurturing, but you want to have a different set of activities for each one of these pipelines, the recommended flow is to go and create another stage. So, you can create one stage called short-term nurturing, one stage called long-term nurturing. But then I would only include the long-term nurturing stage within this sales cycle. So by doing that, I have 2 different stages, which means in that sales stage configuration, I can now have 2 different sets of activities with their own timing. So that's only for those of you who are going to be using multiple pipelines and leveraging that sales cycle feature. Otherwise, I just click on each one of these, and then as we saw, I configure the set of activities. So I'll go ahead and I'll just click on one of these existing ones. You click on the more details to make adjustments, and you'll see there's just a couple attributes. So first of all, each one is going to start off with creating it immediately or later on. And if you select to start it later on some sort of delay, it's going to delay after one of these other activities. So in this case, I've set mine where I want this follow-up to appear later, after one of my emails, and I wanted to just do it after the first meeting follow-up email, and I want to wait 1 day. And then it'll stick a follow-up into the agenda of whoever is currently assigned to that opportunity, and it'll have the note of first meeting thank you. So if you look at kind of the flow of how that works is immediately when I enter the nurturing stage, you can look at the wait time and we can see which ones come up first. It's going to send the first meeting follow-up email. So it sends that off to the customer. So if we click on that, you can see there's a standard template I've already got built in. It just leverages the basic email feature. It would send from well, you can see right here, I can choose who I want to send from, but I can either send from a central address or it's more common to send from the sales rep's email. So it's basically a replacement for the sales rep sending the email themselves. And then it'll send that out. And 1 day later, it will now it'll put a follow-up into that sales rep's agenda for the first meeting thank you. Then 1 day after that, it'll go and it will send another email to the client for their first meeting thank you. So it'll wait 1 day after that follow-up is completed. Then it'll wait 4 more days and it will put another follow-up into the sales rep's calendar for their first meeting thank you. So the idea is that I've kind of built together a combination of sending automatic communications out to the client and then putting reminders for our sales reps to follow up on those communications. Of course, that's going to be unique for each business, but that's the workflow built right here. And what we'll see is, let's just go click on one of these stages that doesn't have any activities. So let's say we're going to create a brand new stage. So I've got prospecting here, but I think it's disabled in the pipeline. Why don't we go ahead and re-enable the prospecting stage and create a couple activities for it? So, we'll re-enable it, and we want to make sure that it appears in the proper order, because when a sales rep visualizes their pipeline, they're going to see prospecting first. And then I'll come into the activities, and we're going to start off from the beginning to the end. So let's say right when I enter the prospecting stage, I just want to put a follow-up onto my sales rep's calendar. We'll have it go immediately on there, and we'll just say first follow-up. So that goes in, and that would automatically go and put that activity into their agenda. So let's just say in this case, we'll have a first follow-up, and then as soon as that's completed, I just want to send a general information email. But when I want to send an email, I'm going to have a template ahead of time. So perhaps I already have a template. If I didn't, not a problem. You can just leave this right here, go to your email templates, and we can create one. So we'll say this is general info packet. And you can put all the personalizations here. I mean, the topic of this isn't really for sending off the email, so we're just going to say information about snap time, and we're going to leave this email template empty. So one thing is, when you're creating automated emails from sales stage activities, it's recommended that you turn these off. The idea is that you might not ever manually send this email, so that way a user will never see it when trying to send an email themselves. This will only exist when you're building out workflows like we're doing right now. So I've got that email template. We go back to our sales stage activities, and we were working on the prospecting stage. So now we can go ahead and we can add that email activity. So that will begin later. It will start after our follow-up. And we're going to make it wait after the first follow-up activity. So you notice once I picked follow-ups, it would just filter and show me all of my follow-ups on this one stage. And then I can say, well, I'll just wait 1 day. I could even do hours, minute, whatever I want. And then I will trigger it as the configuring user's email ID. So that means whoever is working on that deal. I could go and CC some address, but I'm just going to pick my template. So we just created our, should be our general information template. Let's see, let me go back in there. Looks like I made a mistake. I guess I do have to leave it enabled for compose email inside of here. Oh yes, because we configured it to go from the configuring user's email. So if you do a static email address, you'll be able to use a template that's not enabled for users. But if I'm going to send as the user, I have to have that flag enabled. So then now we should be able to just hop back in, repeat that same setup, 1 day, and come back and pick our general info packet. Okay, so we're all set there. We'll just create that. And then I could say, well, maybe a few days after that, I want to put a task in to confirm the interest of the client. So it's not something where I'm actually going to have to call or anything. I'll let that be up to the user. But the idea is that I'm going to complete this stage, I want to have a task, just like a checkbox. So say, is the client interested? So, okay, we'll go ahead, we'll do that. I'll make that start later. So let's just say we'll make this pop up in the agenda 3 days after that email gets sent out. So it starts after our general info packet email. We will wait 3 days. And then the name of this is confirm client interest. So I can put some further description. I can prioritize it and such. These are just attributes that will appear on the task itself, but I'll go ahead and create that with some basic information. So there we go. We've added 3 activities in there. And now the idea is if I go generate a fresh opportunity right now, so let's just say that we've got a Tustin Hi Photos. We'll just go link it to one of our existing customers here. And we'll skip a bunch of these fields just for the sake of some time. We'll go hop in there, set our close dates and everything. And then our stage doesn't appear here because it'll be automatically allocated based on the type that we pick. Now you'll see that my stages are automatically generated. And we see our new prospecting stage has popped up with the available activities inside of it. So that's how everything gets generated. And then the way that things get completed is basically on each tab. Whenever a task is up and due and such, or these follow-ups pop up on the calendar, you'll see they've all just been generated on their appropriate timing. If I go and complete this, it would trigger the next item in the workflow, and it would just step on through. So then each deal has its own workflow on side of it. Although you can go and look at, all of your deals across each stage that they're in based on this view right here. Okay, but that's basically it for today's presentation. If you'd like to learn more information about these, feel free to reach out to the support team, or if you'd like to learn more about the related workflow elements that we spoke about in the start of the video, then you can head over to youtube.com/Apptivo, and you'll see those underneath the webinar section, or specifically the CRM right here. So getting the most out of sales pipeline, managing multiple pipelines in one, and if we hop over here, you'll also find the triggers webinar as well, which is very similar. So for that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this session. So thank you everybody for attending, and hopefully we'll catch you next time.